Chapter 1. The driveway. The crunch of tires on my freshly laid gravel driveway sounded like a gunshot in the quiet of my cul-de-sac. I was in the GA rage, organizing tax files for the firm. I looked up. A cherry-red convertible BMW, top down, naturally, pulling into my space. Jessica, my cousin. The last person I expected to see, and certainly not in a CA, that cost more than my first house. She stepped out. Designer sunglasses. Hair like a shampoo commercial. She looked around my property. The new siding, the manicured lawn, the Ford Raptor parked next to my Civic. Her lip curled. Well, if it isn't the ghost of Christmas past, still living in this modest little shoebox, S.A. Raw. And that truck trying to compensate for something I didn't move from the filing cabinet. Jessica, didn't know you were in town. Thought you were in the Bahamas spending Marquez alimony. She sauntered over, flicking her sunglasses onto her head. Marquez old news. Divorced, remember, and I'm back for Mom's birthday. But look at you, still alone for ya RS since you chased David away, and you haven't found another sucker to put up with your boring personality. That's pathetic, S.A. Raw. Truly pathetic. I'd say I feel sorry for you, but we both know you're just built to be a spinster. I closed the file drawer. The click echoed in the GA rage. David left because you slept with him in my bed, Jess. Not because I'm boring. And I didn't chase him away. I served him papers. There's a difference. She laughed. A high, Shaw RP sound. Semantics. You were always so technical. David said, you were a cold fish anyway. Said UCA read more about spreadsheets than him. And look at you now, surrounded by spreadsheets and silence. Meanwhile, I've moved on. New man. New life. And you still counting pennies in a GA rage. Pathetic. She turned to walk back to her Beamer. Try to smile at the Parudi, S.A. Raw. Maybe someone will pity you enough to buy you a drink. Though, at your age, the pickings re slim. I watched her drive off, the exhaust fumes mixing with the scent of my new Ceta, shingles. I pulled out my phone. I opened the banking app. I looked at the balance of Horizon Capital LLC, the shell company I'd used to buy the note on Jessica's Miami penthouse. $1.2 million outstanding. Interest accruing daily. I typed a quick email to my attorney. Initiate foreclosure proceedings. She's back. And she just gave me the patience I needed to accelerate the default. I put the phone away. I looked at the GA rage. My sanctuary. My office. My empire. I didn't feel pathetic. I felt precise. She wanted to talk about being alone. I'd show her what alone looked like when you own the paper on someone else's dreams. And as I walked back into the house, the silence wasn't lonely. It was strategic. Because in 4 RS, I hadn't just healed. I'd acquired. And the first acquisition, her financial ruin. I hung my keys on the hook. The metal clinked. A small sound. But in my world, small sounds often preceded the biggest collapses. Chapter 2. The birthday PA Rudy Aunt CA Roll's 70th birthday was at the Golden Phoenix, a mid-tier banquet hall with sticky floors and limp salad. I arrived precisely at 2 p.m., the time on the invitation. I didn't want to mingle. I wanted to sign the CARD and leave. But as I walked in, the room went quiet. Heads turned. I saw Jessica at the head table, holding court. She spotted me. She nudged the man beside her, a balding guy in a shiny suit. Look, honey, it's my cousin S.A. Raw. The one I was telling you about. The one who couldn't keep a man if her life depended on it. The guy chuckled. A few others did too. Aunt C.A. Roll looked EMBA rasped, but she didn't say anything. She never did. I walked to the table. I placed the CARD in front of her. Happy birthday, Aunt Carol. Wishing you health and CLA righty. Jessica snatched the CA road. She opened it. No check. Just a gift CARD for $25 to a local bookstore. She sneered. A bookstore, how quaint. And cheap. What's the matter, S.A. Raw, penny pinching again? Or did David clean you out so bad you can't even afford a real gift? I looked at her. At the diamond bracelet on her wrist. The bracelet David had bought me for our anniversary. The one she'd stolen along with him. I'm not penny pinching, Jessica.
I'm prioritizing.
Unlike some people who prioritize other people's husbands and other people's jewelry. Her face flushed. You bitter little language, Jessica, I said. It's Aunt C.A. Roll's birthday. Let's not ruin it with your usual theatrics. We all remember the last party. The one where you got so drunk you fell into the punch bowl. Or was that the party where you announced your engagement to David? Oh, wait. That didn't last either. Did it? Funny how happily ever after has a shelf life of about 6 months with you. The table went silent. The balding guy shifted in his seat. Aunt C.A. Roll looked like she wanted to disape our Jessica's eyes narrowed.
You're still sore about that.
God, S.A. Raw. Let it go. David was bored. I gave him excitement. And for your information, I've moved on.
I've got a real man now.
A provider. Unlike your CPA salary. I smiled. A thin, cold smile. A provider, is that what we're calling it now? The guy whose credit score you tanked with your last shopping spree, the guy whose Miami penthouse is 3 months behind on payments. Interesting definition of provider, Jessica. In my world, a provider pays their debts. They don't hide behind shell companies and tempora liquidity issues. Her eyes widened. Just a fraction. But I saw it. The flicker of panic. She hadn't known I knew about the penthouse. Or the LLC. Or the fact that the liquidity issues were about to become a full-blown liquidity crisis. I don't know what you're talking about, she hissed. Sure you do, I said. But enjoy the cake, Jessica. And the champagne. Drink up. Because after today, the only thing you'll be celebrating is your newfound freedom from material possessions. STA rooting with that bracelet. It looks heavy. Must be exhausting, CA rying around the weight of your lies. I turned to Aunt C.A. Roll. Enjoy your day, Auntie. I'll see myself out. I walked away. I didn't look back. I heard Jessica's shrill voice demanding to know what I meant. But I was already out the door. The sun was bright. The air was clear, and for the first time in 4 years, I felt like I'd finally taken back the narrative. She'd called me pathetic. But as I drove home, I realized the only pathetic thing was a woman who didn't realize her entire life was a line item on my balance sheet. And I was about to close the books.
Permanently.
Chapter 3. The audit letter. 3 days after the party, Jessica showed up at my office. Not the house. The office. She'd bypassed the receptionist, claimed family emergency. She stormed into my cubicle, her face blotchy, eyes red. She slammed a letter onto my desk. It was from a collections agency. Final notice. Default on loan #7742. B. Property 42, Ocean View Drive, Miami, Florida. Amount due $1,243,000. You, she seethed. This is your doing. Horizon Capital, that's you. You bought my note. You're trying to foreclose on my home.
How dare you?
How fucking dare you? I looked up from my monitor. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't flinch. Lower your voice, Jessica. This is a workplace. And yes, Horizon Capital is a subsidiary of my firm's investment portfolio. We acquired several non-performing loans last quarter. Yours was one of them. According to the terms, you're in ARREARS. We're simply enforcing the contract you signed. Contract, you're my cousin. You don't foreclose on family. What happened to loyalty to blood? You're so obsessed with your precious numbers that you'd throw your own flesh and blood onto the street. You're a monster. S.A. Raw. A cold, calculating monster. I leaned back in my chair. I steepled my fingers. Loyalty, blood, Jessica. Let's review the facts. 4 years ago, you slept with my husband. In our bed. You drained our joint accounts before the divorce. You convinced him to sign over the beach house, my grandmother's house, to you as pa-RT of the settlement. And then, when he figured out you were just using him for the alimony, you dumped him and moved to Miami. You've defaulted on the mortgage for that Miami penthouse 3 times in the last year. You've maxed out 4 credit cards in your new man's name. And now, you're crying family because the consequences of your actions have finally caught up to you. Save the hypocrisy. It doesn't compound interest. She reached across the desk, grabbing my collar. I'll sue you. I'll tell everyone what you're doing. I grabbed her wrist. Firmly. My grip was strong.
Precise.
Let go of my shirt, Jessica, or I'll call security and file assault charges. And as for suing me, go ahead. Discovery will be fun. We'll subpoena your bank records, your text messages, your liquidity emails. And when we do, the court will see exactly how you've been providing for your new man by draining his accounts. The same way you drained David's. And mine.
So, sueme. Please.
It'll speed up the foreclosure. She let go. She stumbled back. TRS streaming now. Real TRS. Not the manipulative kind. The desperate kind. Raw, please. I'm begging you, don't do this. I'll lose everything, the penthouse, the lifestyle, everything. I stood up. I walked around the desk. I looked down at her. You lost everything the night you chose David over decency. The penthouse, it was never yours. It was the bank's. And now it's mine. And I'm not doing anything, Jessica. I'm simply allowing the natural order of finance to occur.
You borrow.
You repay. Or you lose the collateral. It's not personal. It's math. And math, unlike you, doesn't lie. I picked up the foreclosure letter. I handed it back to her. You have 30 days to cure the default. That's $1.24 million plus late fees and legal costs. If you can produce that by next Tuesday, I'll halt the proceedings. If not, the locks change on the 1st. And Jessica, don't bother calling Mom or Aunt CA roll. I've already spoken to them. They're tired. Just like me. I sat back down. I turned to my monitor.
Está RTD typing.
She stood there, shaking. Then, she turned and ran out of the office. I heard the receptionist ask if she was okay. No answer. Just the slam of the glass door. I kept typing. A new spreadsheet. Tracking the projected sale of the Miami property. Conservative estimate. $2.1 million. After paying off the note and fees, profit. $780,000. Enough to fund the SA Miller Scholarship for financial literacy. For girls like me, who didn't sleep their way to a lifestyle, but worked for it. I saved the file. I leaned back. The office was quiet. The hum of the servers was soothing. I looked at the empty chair across from me. The one Jessica had occupied. It wasn't a throne. It was a debtor's seat. And in my world, debtors didn't get sympathy. They got statements. And today, Jessica's statement had a very large negative balance. Chapter 4. The alibi. The next week, Jessica tried a different tactic. She showed up at my house. Unannounced. Again. But this time, she wasn't angry. She was weepy. Vulnerable. She sat on my porch swing, wiping her eyes with a lace handkerchief.
Sarah.
I've been thinking about what you said about David, and 4 years ago. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed. What about it, Jessica? She sniffed. It wasn't how you think. David, he came on to me.
Isfar.
At the family reunion. He was drunk. He said you didn't understand him. That you were cold. He kissed me. And I panicked. I didn't know what to do. And then one thing led to another, but it was his fault, to say raw. Not mine. I was just a victim of his loneliness.
Can't you see?
I'm sorry I hurt you. But I was just trying to survive his advances. I'm not a homewrecker. I'm a survivor. I read at her. The performance was Oscar-worthy. The trembling lip. The downcast eyes. The narrative shift. From seductress to victim. Clever. But predictable. I walked out onto the porch. I sat on the railing, facing her. An interesting revision, Jessica. He came on to you. You panicked. Survivor. Very poignant. Almost believable. Except for one thing. She looked up, hopeful. Except what? Raw. I pulled out my phone. I opened a file. I hit play. David's voice. Slurred, but distinct. Recorded on my old answering machine the night before I caught them. Jess, baby, I'm at the bar, Ross working late. Come over. I've got the wine. And that lingerie I bought you, we are it. I want to see if it looks as good as it did in my imagination. Later, babe. Can't wait. I paused the recording. I looked at her. Her face had gone white. That was from my old voicemail archive. I kept it. For tax purposes, originally. But it turns out it's excellent for character assessment. He came on to you.
No, Jessica.
You came on to him. At his invitation. We ring the lingerie he bought. In the bed I paid for. And the panic, the only thing you were panicking about was whether I'd come home early and interrupt your survival. I put the phone away. You're not a survivor, Jessica. You're a predator. And predators don't get alibis. They get caught. And recorded. And audited. And today you're caught. So spare me the victim routine. It might work on your new man or Aunt CA role. But it doesn't work on me. Because I've got the tape. Literally. She stood up, the handkerchief falling to the floor. You bitch. You've been holding that over me all this time. Why didn't you play it before during the divorce? You could have destroyed me. I didn't need to destroy you then, I said. I needed to heal. And destroying you wouldn't have healed me. But now you came back. You mocked my life. You called me pathetic. You forced my hand. And now I'm not just playing the tape. I'm submitting it as evidence in the foreclosure case. Along with the bank records showing you transferred $50,000 from David's account to yours 2 weeks before I caught you. Embezzlement, Jessica. On top of adultery. You're not just losing a house. You're looking at potential criminal charges. In 2 states. She staggered back. You wouldn't, your family. I'm an accountant, Jessica, I said. Family is a biological accident. Numbers a choice. And your numbers don't add up. Not anymore. Now get off my porch. And don't come back. The next time I see you, it'll be through the glass of a visitor's center. Or the window of a moving truck hauling your crap out of my grandmother's beach house. Which, by the way, I'm also in the process of reclaiming. Seems you never quite got the deed transferred properly. Clerical error. My attorney is correcting it as we speak. She opened her mouth. No words came out. She turned and fled to her BMW. She peeled out, kicking up gravel. I watched her go. I picked up the lace handkerchief. I tossed it into the trash can by the door. Survivor, I muttered. More like scavenger. I went back inside. I sat at my desk. I opened the file for the beach house. The one she'd stolen. The one my grandmother had willed to me. The one I'd get back. Through quiet titles. And adverse possession. And the simple fact that the truth, like a good audit, always finds the discrepancies. I leaned back. The house was silent. But it was a silence filled with the hum of justice. And the click of a mouse. Saving the recording. For posterity. And for the day I'd finally get to say, checkmate, cousin. And the king was never you. It was always the queen. Counting the coins. Chapter 5. The new man. Jessica's new man, whose real name turned out to be Richard Road, showed up next. Not at my office. At my house. At 8 p.m. I was reviewing quarterly reports. The doorbell rang. I checked the camera. Richard Road, balding, shiny suit. Looking nervous. I considered not answering, but curiosity won. I opened the door. Richard Road didn't expect to see you. Jessica send you. He shuffled his feet. Ms. Miller?
Sarah. I
wanted to apologize for Jessica's behavior. And I need to talk to you about the penthouse and other things. I stepped aside.
Come in.
But make it quick. I've got numbers to crunch. He sat on the couch. I stayed standing. He looked around the room. Nice place. Solid. Not like the Miami place. Jessica said you were struggling. But this seems stable. Stability is a byproduct of living within one's means, I said. Unlike the penthouse, which is a byproduct of living beyond them. What do you want, Richard R.D., he sighed. Ran a hand over his bald spot. It's the penthouse. And the credit CARDS. And the CAR lease. Jessica, she told me she was independently wealthy. That her investments covered everything. But the bank called. And the credit CARD companies. And now I'm realizing she put everything in my name. The loans. The leases. Even the furniture. I'm on the hook for $1.8 million, SA raw. $1.8 million. And I'm just a regional manager for a plumbing supply company. I make $90,000 a year. I can't pay this. And she says it's our problem. But the papers, they're all in my name. She forged my signature on half of them. I raised an eyebrow. Forged your signature, that's a felony, Richard Road. I know. And I'm SCA red. I'm going to lose everything. My job, my CAR, my reputation. And Jessica, she's acting like it's no big deal. Like I should just declare bankruptcy and STA, RT over. But I have 2 kids from my first marriage. I can't have bankruptcy. It'll ruin their college funds. And she doesn't CA. She just keeps spending. On clothes, on dinners, on God knows what. SA Ra, you're an accountant. You understand numbers. Can you help me? Can you stop the foreclosure or at least tell me how to get out of this mess? I'll pay you. I don't have much, but I held up a hand. Slow down, Richard Road. First, I'm not your accountant. I'm the holder of the note on the penthouse. My interest is in recovering the debt, not managing your personal finances. Second, if Jessica forged your signature, you need a lawyer, not a CPA. Specifically, a lawyer specializing in identity theft and contractual fraud. Third, the foreclosure is proceeding as scheduled. $1.24 million doesn't vanish because you claim forgery. You'll need to prove it in court.
And that takes time.
And money, which, apparently, you don't have. He deflated. So, that's it, I'm ruined because of her. In this specific instance, yes, I said. But here's a piece of free advice. Richard Road, stop trying to keep a woman who sees you as a line of credit. And START auditing your own life. Because if you didn't notice $1.8 million in debt accumulating in your name, you weren't paying attention. Or you didn't want to. Either way, the responsibility is yours. And as for helping you all do this, I'll provide your attorney with the financial records I have on Jessica's payment history, or lack thereof. It might help establish a pattern of deception. But that's it. I'm not your savior. I'm your creditor. And Jessica's. And the only difference between you and her, you're finally realizing she's a liability. She realized it 4 years ago. And she's been cashing in on your ignorance ever since. He looked up at me, TRS in his eyes. She said you were cold, heartless, but you're just honest, brutally honest. And I think I needed to hear it, even if it hurts. Honesty isn't heartless, Richard Road, I said. It's merciful, because it stops you from throwing good money after bad. Now, take my advice. See a lawyer. Freeze your credit. And get a restraining order if she won't leave Volney Riley. And for God's sake, check your bank statements. Weekly. If you have any money left. He stood up.
Shaky. Thank you, S.A. Ra.
For the truth. Even if it's ugly. Truth usually is, I said. Good luck, Richard Road. You'll need it. More than I ever did. I showed him out. I watched him walk to his aging Honda Accord. Not a Beamer. An Accord. With a dent in the fender. I closed the door. I went back to my desk. I opened a new file. Richard Road, identity theft/fraud. I made a few notes. Then, I emailed my attorney. Potential co-defendant in foreclosure. Claims forgery. Investigate. Might be useful leverage against Jessica. I leaned back. The house was quiet again. But this time, the silence felt heavier. Because Richard Road wasn't a villain. He was a victim of Jessica's charm and his own naivety. And as I sat there, I realized my revenge wasn't just on Jessica. It was on the version of myself that had allowed her into my life. The trusting version. The naive version. The version that believed family meant protection. Now I knew better. Family was just people. And people were variables. And variables could be audited and corrected. I looked at the photo of David and me on our wedding day. I'd kept it, not for sentiment, for data, to remind myself that even the happiest balances could be manipulated, and that the only safe balance was the one you controlled completely. I turned off the lamp. The room went to RK. But my mind was clear, R. Because in the .RK, numbers didn't lie. And Jessica's numbers were about to hit 0. And Richa RDs, they were just beginning their descent. And I was just beginning my ascent. Out of the ashes of their mistakes. And into the CLA righty of my own making. Chapter 6. The beach house was the final piece. My grandmother's house. The one Jessica had tricked David into signing over. I drove down to the coast on a Saturday. The place looked the same. Weathered shingles. Wide porch. The sound of waves. But the for sale sign in the RD was new. Jessica was liquidating. Desperate for cash. I parked my Civic, not the Raptor. I wanted to blend in and walked up. A realtor was showing the place to a couple. I waited by the dunes until they left. Then, I approached the realtor, a young guy in a blue blazer. Excuse me. I'm interested in the property, but I heard there might be a title issue. He looked annoyed. Title's clear, ma'am. Sellers got a clean deed. Probate was settled years ago. Settled, I asked. Or improperly recorded. My name is S.A. Ra Miller. This was my grandmother's house.
She willed it to me.
But my cousin, Jessica, somehow ended up with the deed. I've been reviewing the county records. There's a discrepancy in the notary stamp from 2019. And the witness signatures, they look identical. Almost like they were traced.
His expression changed.
From annoyance to concern.
Mum,
I'm not aware of any discrepancies. The seller provided all the documentation. We're under contract. Under contract, I interrupted. With whom? Because if the title is clouded, that contract is voidable. And I'd hate for your buyers to lose their earnest money because of a forgery. Mind if I take a look at the abstract? I pulled out my phone, showing him my CPA license. I'm an auditor, and I've already flagged this property with the county recorder's office for a quiet title action. If you sell it now, you're liable for civil damages and potential conspiracy charges if you knew about the forgery. He paled. I didn't know. I just listed it. Jessica said everything was fine. Jessica lies, I said. It's what she does. And right now, she's lying to you about the status of this house. It's not hers to sell. It's mine. And I have the original will. The one she conveniently lost during probate. I found it in my grandmother's safety deposit box, along with letters detailing her wishes. Specific wishes that Jessica never fulfilled, like maintaining the Rose Ga Reden, or paying the property taxes on time, which she hasn't.
For 2 years. I've been paying them.
Anonymously, adding to my equitable interest. I stepped closer, lowered my voice. Here's the deal, Mr. Realtor. You pull the listing today, or I file an injunction first thing Monday morning, and I'll name you personally, your brokerage, and the buyers. And I'll make sure the local BAR association knows you tried to sell a property with a known title defect. Your CA rear won't survive it. But if you seagulled parrot, I'll let you handle the legitimate sale.
To me.
At the asking price. Minus your commission, of course. Because I'm not paying for your mistake. Or Jessica's crime. He swallowed hard. I need to call my broker. Call him, I said. But tell him this. S.A. Ra Miller is reclaiming her grandmother's house. And she's doing it legally. With paperwork. And a very long memory. And if he values his license, he'll advise you to remove the listing. Immediately. I turned and walked back to my CAR. I didn't look back. I knew he'd comply. Because I wasn't bluffing. The quiet title action was already filed. The back taxes were paid. The will was authenticated. And Jessica's deed. It was a forgery. I'd proven it with ink analysis and handwriting experts. The only thing left was the court order. And that was coming. I drove away. I looked in the REA review mirror. The house was shrinking. But it wasn't fading. It was waiting.
For me.
For the rightful owner. And as I hit the highway, I thought about my grandmother. Her hands. Her wisdom. Her roses. And her mistake. Trusting Jessica.
Amistad caída correcta.
With math.
And law.
And the relentless pursuit of what was rightfully mine. I pulled into a rest stop. I took out the will. I read the last line. To my granddaughter S.A. Ra, who understands the value of $1 and the weight of a promise. May she always have a place by the sea to count the waves and the truth. I folded it. I put it away. I root the car. I drove home. The waves were calling, but so was the calculator. And I had a feeling that by the time I answered both, Jessica would be answering to a judge. And the beach house, it would be smelling of salt and victory. Not perfume and lies. Chapter 7. The settlement. The foreclosure on the penthouse was scheduled for the 1st. But on the 28th, Jessica's attorney called. They wanted a settlement conference. I agreed. I didn't want a trial. I wanted closure. We met at a neutral office. My attorney, hers, and Jessica, looking like she'd aged 10 years in a month.
Da RK Circles, trembling hands.
No designer glasses today. Just desperation. My attorney root. Ms. Miller is willing to entertain a settlement to avoid the costs of litigation. However, given the evidence of fraud, forgery, and embezzlement, her position remains firm. The penthouse is to be surrendered. The beach house title is to be corrected. And restitution for the $50,000 embezzled from David's accounts is to be paid. Jessica's attorney sighed. My client acknowledges certain irregularities. However, she lacks the liquidity to satisfy the full restitution. She proposes a structured payment plan, and she's willing to sign over the beach house immediately in exchange for dropping the criminal referral. I leaned four-way road. Irregularities, let's call them what they are, felonies. And a payment plan based on what income, counselor, her only income is the allowance Richard Road thinks he's providing. Which, by the way, he's stopping as of today. I spoke with his attorney. Richard Road is filing for divorce and pressing charges for identity theft. Jessica's liquidity is a myth. It evaporated with Richard RD's credit line. So no payment plan, cash or keys. Today, Jessica finally spoke.
Her voice was a rasp.
S.A. Ra, please. I'm begging you, don't do this. I'll be homeless. I'll have nothing. Isn't that enough? Taking the penthouse, taking the beach house. Must you ruin me completely? I looked at her. Really looked. The woman who'd smirked at my modest shoebox was now begging in a borrowed pantsuit. The irony was thick. But I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt empty. Ruined you completely, Jessica. I didn't ruin you. You ruined yourself. 4 years ago, the night you chose theft over trust. And every day since, when you chose denial over accountability. I'm not taking anything from you. I'm reclaiming what you stole. The penthouse was never yours. The beach house was never yours. The $50,000. It was never yours. You were just squatting in my life. And now the eviction notice is final. I slid a document across the table. This is a quitclaim deed for the beach house. Sign it. Notarize it.
Today.
And this is a stipulation of foreclosure for the penthouse.
Sign it.
And I'll withdraw the criminal referral. For now. But if you so much as jaywalk in the next 5 years, I'll reopen the case. And I'll include the voicemail, the forged signatures, and the embezzlement evidence. And you'll spend your retirement in a state facility, not a Miami penthouse. Do we understand each other? She read at the papers. Her hands shook. She looked at her attorney. He nodded, grim. She picked up the pen. It took her 3 tries to sign her name. The letters were jagged. Broken. She pushed the papers back. They're happy now you've won. You've taken everything. I gathered the documents. I stood up. I haven't taken anything, Jessica. I've recovered what was lost. And, happy no. Justice isn't about happiness. It's about balance. And today, the balance sheet is finally reconciled. You're not homeless, by the way. Richard RD's moving out of the accord. You can have it. It's the only asset he didn't put in his name. Consider it a paw-rooting gift. From one survivor to another. I walked out. My attorney followed. We didn't speak until we were in the elevator. You were tough in there, S.A. Ra, he said. But fair. Fair is all I have left, I said. And I'll be damned if I give it up for pity. I drove straight to the beach house. The for sale sign was gone. The realtor had complied. I unlocked the door with the key I'd had duplicated years ago, just in case. I walked in. The air was musty. Dust covered the furniture. Jessica's decor was tacky.
Gaudy.
I walked to the living room window. The ocean was gray, churning. I opened it. The sound of the waves filled the room. I breathed in the salt air. I walked to the fireplace. Above it, a framed photo of my grandmother. I took it down. I wiped the glass. Her eyes smiled at me.
Wise.
Knowing. I hung it back. Straight. I walked through the house. Room by room. I opened windows. I aired it out. I was home. Not the house in the cul-de-sac. This house. By the sea. Where the only numbers that mattered were the tides. And the only voice was the wind. I sat on the floor. I leaned against the wall. I closed my eyes. And for the first time in 4 years, I didn't feel alone. Because I wasn't. I was with the truth. And the truth was a far better companion than a cousin who'd traded loyalty for a lie. I stayed there until sunset. The sky turned orange. Purple. Then dark. I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't need to. I knew the way. In the dark. In the light. In the numbers. And in the silence. I was finally completely mine. Chapter 8. The eviction the first of the month arrived. Eviction day for the Miami penthouse. I flew down. First class, courtesy of the firm's travel budget. I wanted to be there, not to gloat. To witness. The locksmith met me at the building. High-rise. Oceanfront. Very Jessica. We rode the elevator to the 40th floor. Penthouse 40A. The door was slightly ajar. Jessica hadn't bothered to secure it.
Typical.
I knocked. No answer. I pushed the door open. The place was trashed. Clothes everywhere. Empty champagne bottles. A smashed vase. The designer sofa had a rip in the cushion. It smelled like cheap perfume and despair. I walked in. Jessica, it's S.A. Raw. I'm here for the keys. A voice from the bedroom.
Slurred.
Go away, you got what you wanted, leave me alone. I walked to the bedroom. She was on the floor, surrounded by disque-ride shoes. A half-empty bottle of vodka in her hand. She looked up at me, her eyes unfocused. You bitch, you think you've won but you haven't. I'll bounce back. I always do. New man, new city, new life, you'll see. I looked down at her. At the woman who'd once called me pathetic. She was the one on the floor. Literally. New man. Richa RD's divorcing you, Jessica.
That.
New city, you can't afford a bus ticket, let alone a new city. New life, your life is a credit report with a 300 score. And I'm not here to argue. I'm here for the keys. And the GA Rage door opener. And the mailbox key. Hand them over. She fumbled in her purse. Pulled out a keyring. Tossed it at my feet. There, take it, take everything, you've already taken my soul. I picked up the keys. I tested the deadbolt on the front door. It worked. I handed the locksmith his fee. He changed the locks.
Click.
The sound of finality. I turned back to Jessica. She was crying now. Real TRS. The kind that come from hitting rock bottom. Sarah, please, don't leave me here. I have nowhere to go. Richa Road changed the locks on the Accord. I'm sleeping in the lobby. I looked at her. I felt a flicker. Not of pity. Of recognition. Of what I could have become. If I'd let her win. If I'd stayed pathetic. But I hadn't.
Either forward.
And survived.
And thrived.
You're not sleeping in the lobby, Jessica, I said. That's trespassing. And I'm not leaving you here. I'm calling you a cab. To the bus station. I've bought you a one-way ticket to Jacksonville. There's a women's shelter there.
So
they'll take you in. Help you get sober.
Help you find a job.
Maybe even help you understand that surviving doesn't mean stealing. It means running. The cab is downstairs. It leaves in 10 minutes. With or without you. I tossed a crumpled $20 our bill onto the floor. That's for the FA. Don't spend it on vodka. Spend it on a future. If you can figure out what that means. I turned and walked out. I didn't look back. I heard her scramble to her feet. He rode her sob. He rode her stumble tawa RD the elevator. I waited by the new lock. The locksmith was gone. It was just me and the silence of the penthouse. I walked to the balcony. The ocean stretched forever.
Blue.
Indifferent. I looked at the key in my hand. The key to a life that had never truly belonged to her.
Or, to me.
It was just a key. To a place. Not a home. I walked back inside. I closed the door. I tested the lock. Secure. I took one last look at the trashed room, the empty bottles, the ripped sofa, the disque ride dreams. And I walked out, down the elevator, into the lobby. I saw Jessica getting into a yellow cab. She didn't see me. The cab pulled away. I stood there until it decisively read A round the corner. Then, I walked to my rental car. I drove to the airport. I didn't think about her. I thought about the beach house, about the roses I'd plant, about the quiet, about the numbers that finally added up. The flight home was smooth. I landed at dusk. I drove to the beach house. I walked inside. I lit a fire. I sat in my grandmother's chair. I looked at the flames. They danced.
Consumed.
But they didn't judge. They just burned. And as the wood crackled, I realized the eviction wasn't just of Jessica. It was of the past. The anger, the hurt, the what-ifs. They were all out, on the street, in a cab, headed to a shelter.
And I
was staying, in the RMTH, in the light, in the truth. And the only thing left to evict was the memory of her voice, calling me pathetic. I closed my eyes. The fire popped, and in the sound, I heard my grandmother whisper, "Well done, S.A. Raw. Well done." Chapter 9. The reunion a year later, Aunt C.A. roll through a reconciliation B.A. Rebecca. She'd heard about Jessica's downfall, about the beach house, about the foreclosure. She wanted closure. I almost didn't go, but curiosity and a sense of familial duty won out. I drove to her house in the old neighborhood. The smell of charcoal and cut grass filled the air. CARS lined the street. I recognized most of them. Relatives. Old neighbors. I parked. I walked into the Bacquier Road, heads turned. Whispers. I saw Uncle Joe, Cousin Lisa, and Jessica, sitting at the kids' table. Literally. She was thinner, paler, wearing a stained sweatshirt. She didn't look up as I approached. Aunt C.A. Roll rushed over, hugging me.
Sarah.
You came. Thank you. It means so much. Jessica, she's been through so much. We're trying to help her get back on her feet. She's working at the Walmart RT now, stocking shelves. It's humbling, but it's honest work. I looked at Jessica. She was picking at a paper plate. A hot dog.
No boon.
Honest work, I repeated.
Good.
She needs it. Aunt C.A. Roll lowered her voice. S.A. Ra, can't you find it in your HRT to forgive? She's family, blood, she's sorry. She said so. She just wants to move past it. Maybe you could help her with a reference or a loan just to get an APA. Meant she's sleeping on Lisa's couch. It's not ideal. I looked at Aunt C.A. Roll. At the woman who'd enabled Jessica for decades. Forgive. Maybe. Forget no. And help her with what a reference for what embezzlement forgery. I'm an accountant. Aunt C.A. Roll. My reputation is built on trust. Giving Jessica a reference would be professional suicide. And a loan, she's proven she doesn't honor debts. I'd be throwing money into a black hole. And, as for moving past it, she can move past it when she pays back the $50,000 she stole. With interest. Until then, we're not past anything. We're in the present. And the present says she's a convicted felon on probation, working a minimum wage job, and owing me a significant sum. That's not moving past. That's facing consequences. And she should face them. Without handouts. Or excuses. Aunt C.A. Roll's eyes filled with TRS. But she's trying, S.A. Raw. She's changed. She goes to church now. She's sober. Can't you see that? I looked at Jessica again. She'd looked up. Our eyes met. Hers were flat. Empty. Not sorry. Just resigned. Or maybe just better at pretending. Going to church doesn't erase a criminal record. Aunt C.A. Roll. And sobriety doesn't repay a debt. Change isn't words, it's actions. And her actions for 40 years were theft and deceit. 1 year of trying that's not change. That's a parole requirement. And until she proves, through consistent, honest action, that she's not the same person who slept with my husband and stole my inheritance, I owe her nothing. Not forgiveness. Not a reference. Not a dime. And neither do you. Enabling her is what got us here. Stop enabling her. Make her EARN it, like the rest of us. I turned to Jessica. I walked over to her table. I stood there until she looked up. Jessica, I said, Aunt CA Roll wants me to help you. I won't. But I will say this. You're sober. You're working. That's a START, keep it up. For a decade. Then maybe we'll talk. But not before. And if you ever come anywhere my life, my money, or my beach house again, I'll have you violated so fast your head will spin. Do I make myself clear? She nodded. A jerky, unwilling movement. Clea she whispered. I looked at Aunt CA Roll. She's your daughter. Your problem. Not mine.
Eve solved mine.
You solve yours. Without me. I walked away. I didn't eat a hot dog. I didn't stay for the potato salad. I got back in my car. I drove to the beach house. The sun was setting. The sky was on fire. I walked onto the porch. I sat in the rocker. I looked at the ocean.
It was calm tonight.
Reflective. I thought about the barbecue, the whispers, the stained sweatshirt, and the word forgiveness. It was a luxury, one I couldn't afford. Not yet, maybe not ever, because forgiveness implied forgetting. And I didn't forget. I audited, and the audit said Jessica was a liability, one I'd written off.
Permanently.
I closed my eyes. The sound of the waves was a metronome. Steady. Reliable. Unlike family. Unlike cousins. Unlike promises. The waves kept coming. And so did I. I opened my eyes. I looked at my hands. They were clean.
No inextans. No guilt.
Just the calluses of hard work. And the CLA righty of a balanced life. I stood up. I walked inside. I poured a glass of wine. I toasted the empty room. To consequences, I said. And to the silence that follows them. I drank. The wine was dry, like the truth. And just as Nisa say, I went to bed EARLY. I slept deeply, without dreams, without regrets, and without the shadow of a cousin who'd once called me pathetic. Because in the light of day, the only thing pathetic was the life she'd built on lies. And the only thing strong was the woman who'd torn it down, with a calculator. And a key. Chapter 10. The ledger 5 years after the eviction, I sat in my office at the beach house.
It was my home now.
And my office. I'd converted the sunroom into a workspace. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Atlantic. My desk was mahogany. My computer, state-of-the-art. And my ledger, it was open. The final entry. I was auditing my life. Not just the finances. The relationships. The choices. The outcomes. That I looked at the column marked Jessica. The debits were numerous. $50,000 embezzled. $1.24 million in defaulted loans. Legal fees. Emotional distress. Trust betrayed. The credits. Minimal. A vacated penthouse. A surrendered beach house. A criminal record. And a life of minimum wage penitence. The balance overwhelmingly negative. For her. But for me the column was positive. The beach house, fully restored. The mortgage on my cul-de-sac home paid off. A thriving CPA practice. A quiet life. And a peace-eyed EA Rened that I closed the ledger. I labeled it, closed accounts. I put it in the safe, along with the will, the recording, the foreclosure papers, the quitclaim deed, the artifacts of a RI'd one, not with weapons, with worksheets. I stood up. I walked to the window. The sun was high. The waves were white caps. I saw a figure walking on the beach. A woman.
Thin. Familia regait.
Jessica. She was collecting shells. Head down. moving slowly. She didn't look up at the house.
She didn't wave.
She just walked. A ghost on the shore. I watched her for a moment. Then, I turned away. I didn't feel anger, or pity, or triumph. I felt nothing.
She was a closed account.
A reconciled entry. A number that no longer factored into my balance sheet. I walked to the kitchen. I made a pot of tea. I poured a cup. I took it back to the sunroom. I sat down. I opened a new ledger. The first entry, gratitude. For the truth. For the law. For the quiet. For the waves. And for the strength to close a door that had been left open too long. I wrote slowly. Precisely. Each word a brick in a wall.
Not a wall to keep people out,
but a foundation to keep me grounded. I looked at the tea. Steam curled in the air. I sipped it. It was Earl Grey, my grandmother's favorite. I smiled. A small, genuine smile. Not for Jessica.
for me.
For the woman who'd Leah reneged, that alone wasn't a curse. It was a choice. And a privilege. I finished the tea. I closed the new ledger. I labeled it present tense. I put it on the desk, next to the closed one, a reminder that the past was settled, the present was mine, and the future. It was a blank page, waiting for numbers, and truth, and the quiet click of a pen, writing a story where the protagonist didn't need saving, because she'd saved herself, with math, and resolve, and the unshakable knowledge that the only person she needed to be enough for was herself. I stood up. I walked to the porch. I sat in the rocker. I closed my eyes. The sun warmed my face. The waves sang their song. And in the silence between the crests, I heard my grandmother's voice, clear as the bell. Well done, S.A. Raw. Well done. I opened my eyes. I looked at the ocean. It stretched to the horizon. Endless, like the possibilities. I rocked gently, back and forth. And as the sun began its descent, painting the sky in hues of amber and rose, I whispered to the wind, I'm not pathetic, Jessica.
I'm precise.
And precision. It lasts longer than perfume, or lies, or even family. It just is. And I am, finally,
Completely. Me.
I stayed there until the stars ape read. Tiny pinpricks in the velvet RK. I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't need to. I knew the way. In the RK. In the light. In the numbers.
And in the silence.
I was home. And the only guest list that mattered had one name on it.
Mine.
And it wasn't crossed off. It was embossed. In gold. And truth. And the quiet satisfaction of a life well audited. And a he-rt finally, completely at peace.